Good morning, everyone. This is Man Coverage. This is college football. We are part of National Streaming Sports Network, brought to you today by BetUs.com. Nathan Schmidt, James Bonneville. James, week 2, college football. How you feeling?
Holy crap. I mean, it was funny because I had to catch a lot of games after the fact because I was at the Wisconsin-South Dakota game. And like, I'm looking at the Iowa game, looking at the stats while I'm sitting in stands thinking, all right, this is an Iowa type of game. Iowa's going to win. Iowa loses. I see Northern Illinois up. I'm like, all right, Notre Dame's going to come back. Notre Dame loses. I'm like, you just keep going down the line, and then Michigan getting mollywopped. I mean, man, this is like a day I wish I was in front of the TV watching 5 games at once because it was like freaking crazy. It was chaos.
Yeah, it really was. And I kept thinking when I'm watching these games where, the underdog is winning, I keep thinking that, the team that is scheduled to win is going to come back. And then I'm sitting there and it just doesn't happen. And that was kind of the Notre Dame game. But as I'm watching it, I'm like, this isn't a fluke, really.
No.
Like Riley Leonard, we talked about this in the offseason. We're like, Riley Leonard to Notre Dame. And then I'm like, is Riley Leonard an upgrade over Sam Hartman? Because I never thought he was. Sam Hartman had a way better career at Wake Forest than Riley Leonard did at Duke. Sam Hartman was way more dynamic and a better passer than Riley Leonard ever was. I mean, Riley Leonard, as we talked about pre-show, was pretty solid, for what he did under, Mike Elko's system. But that didn't make him like a guy that could go take a team to the playoffs. So I was really confused as to why that was thought by the Notre Dame people and by their fans and by some of the analysts and quotes out there. That just wasn't happening. And let's talk about this Notre Dame game. Notre Dame goes down 16-14. Northern Illinois just methodically marched down the field against this, ballyhooed Notre Dame defense and kicked a field goal to go up 16-14. And that was pretty much it. Notre Dame had a last second chance where they were trying to, make something happen and get close for a field goal and then had their second field goal blocked. We've seen Notre Dame twice now. We saw them against Texas A&M in a rough environment and getting a good victory in College Station. And then we saw them at home get trashed by Northern Illinois. So who is this team, James? I mean, I don't think this team is a playoff team based on what I've seen. I don't think this team is better off with Marcus Freeman than they were with Brian Kelly. And I don't think they're better off with Riley Leonard than they were with Sam Hartman. Do you agree with any of or all of that?
Well, the Riley Leonard part, I agree with. And last week's show, we talked about how Riley Leonard is really good between 0 and 10 yards throwing the ball. But you get beyond 20, his completion percentage at Duke was 23%. Now, the one player that I think Notre Dame really misses a lot, besides Joe Alt, is Estime. I mean, that guy got more dirty yards than you could find anywhere. I mean, Jeremiah Love is a very good running back, but he's not a grinder by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, he is a hardcore downhill. I mean, he's a hardcore speed guy. And, I mean, he's gotten bigger, but they're not going to get those ugly yards that they got from Estime, who would just literally make it hard on linebackers in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, he would get something out of nothing at times, would Estime, and that's what I liked about him, and that's why I thought he was going to do something in the NFL because he was a difference maker, and he was the guy that could put the team on his back and get him some extra yards, and they don't have that guy anymore, and they don't have a wide receiver. I mean, we put this all on Riley Leonard. Everyone does because the quarterback gets all the blame and all the glory, and we know all that. But they don't really have a wide receiver, James, that scares me. They haven't had a wide receiver since Michael Floyd was there. So
well, Turner was always hurt too. I agree with you. I mean, they've always had tight ends. I mean, they've had tight ends growing out their ears. But you're right. Their receiving core, I mean, Bo Collins.
Who scares you? Who scares you outside for them?
Nobody.
Okay.
Nobody. I mean, Collins, maybe, but he's not a 1. He's really a 2 or a 3.
Yeah. I mean, they threw, Riley Leonard yesterday was 20 of 32 for 163 yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. He has yet to throw a touchdown since he joined the Notre Dame team. Yeah. That's not going to cut it. And then, Bo Collins, who you were just mentioning, he was their leading receiver with 5 catches for 45 yards. That's disgusting. And kudos to Northern Illinois. This wasn't a fluke, as we've mentioned earlier. They got the W. They went into South Bend thinking that they could win, and they executed the game plan. And kudos to them. I mean, this is what college football is about. If you don't show up, if you don't take each opponent seriously, you can lose. And especially if you have Notre Dame's offense. I mean, Notre Dame wasn't lighting it up last week versus Texas A&M either.
No. I mean, quite frankly, that was looking back at that game now, it was like an era of comedies. It was who's going to screw up last was going to lose that game.
Correct. Let's take a little ride up north. Obviously, we're here in South Bend right now, but let's get in the car. Let's drive a little bit north of here and go to our friend Ann Arbor because, God, I love watching my Ohio State Buckeyes win football games. But I have to be 100% completely honest with you, James, and anyone who may be watching. I loved watching Michigan lose yesterday more than I liked watching anyone win. This was a long time coming. This game was never close. This game was never competitive. Texas got the ball. They started marching down the field. Michigan got the ball. They started sputtering. I did see some things out of, Warren that I liked. I think he may be a good quarterback in the future. Is he ready to lead them to the promised land right now? Hell no. They're not as good up front as they have been. They don't have the playmakers outside that they've had. Donovan Edwards, I don't know where the hell that guy went. What did you think about Texas yesterday? And what did you think about the Wolverines and where they're at?
Well, Texas literally took the belt out and took it to Michigan. I mean, 10 of 16 on third down conversions. 10 of 16. I mean, are you freaking kidding me? And conversely, Michigan was 3 of 12.
Yeah.
That tells you they were not in third and short. And you had 3 turnovers. I mean, honestly, I look at this game being 31-12, and I look at 31-12 being nice.
Yeah, that game could have been way worse, in my opinion.
I mean, honest to God, it was just we talked about this going into the year. Michigan's line of scrimmage play is the key to this team, and they got to run the ball because, outside of Loveland, who do they got at receiver? Nobody. They've got nobody. And, who's their leading receiver yesterday? Colston Loveland. You want your tight end to be your leading receiver every freaking week? Donovan Edwards has gone downhill over the last, 2 years ago, he was really pretty good. Last year, he downgraded. Now he looks even worse. What's next? He doesn't even play? I look at Michigan and I'm like, I put him at 4th at the beginning of the year, and now I question, are they even the 4th best team in the Big Ten?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I've got to see more. I've got to see what this quarterback, can be. Like I mentioned, I did like what he did at times. He never quit. He hung in the pocket. He was scrambling, doing whatever he could. He was like the lone kind of bright spot for me. Not that he was amazing, but he was better than I thought, considering a lot of people were talking that Orji was going to be the quarterback, and all of a sudden they decide to go with Warren, and I thought he was fine. It was everybody else that kind of bothered me, and I think that the Texas is who they were, and they kind of, in my opinion, took the foot off the gas in the second half.
they look disorganized, and honestly, it looks like the end of the Brady Hoke era.
Yeah.
It really does. And it's weird how you're coming off a team that won a national championship that looked very organized, very methodical. But maybe the question is the most valuable player most valuable person on that roster last year is now the acting head coach at Mumford High School in Detroit.
Yeah, and having a trouble. I thought he was the D coordinator last week. How did he become the head coach?
The head coach, I believe, had a stroke. So he became
Oh.
the acting head coach at Mumford. And granted, remember the first game, the opposition dropped 47 on him. So obviously his sign stealing in high school is not nearly as good as it is in college.
Well, yes, and let's just say football's hard when you don't know what play the other team's running.
Yeah,
And this is very evident. I mean, as we talked about, we're going to talk today with Steve Bellisari and Maurice Hall, two Buckeyes here a little bit later, and get their thoughts on the Michigan situation. But, Cade Stover, who was interviewed this week, had a very good point when they were, running a play for the first time. And, Cade Stover goes in this screen play that was designed up in practice that they had never run in a game. And as soon as he lined up where he did, they started calling out, what was going to be run and that it was a tight end screen. How the hell do they know what play is coming when they've never seen it on tape before and they've never put it on tape? I mean, that leads me to believe they also, had practice film that they shouldn't have had, which has also been discussed. So it's not a good look.
I mean, quite frankly, that Netflix documentary almost became like a promotional video of poor Connor Stallion, just trying to do the right thing. And I'm like, holy moly. I mean, What's next? I mean, we're going to go back and do one on SMU and the boosters. You're right. I mean,
I don't feel sorry for him.
I don't either. I don't. I really don't. It's ridiculous.
No, and that it was a Connor Stallions Michigan fluff piece.
Yeah.
I guess Dave Portnoy paid for it or something. I have no idea why they even made that crap. I don't know why they made that crap, but it's an absolute joke. Staying in the Big Ten, because we are short on time today with our second half of the show, let's talk a little bit about another Big Ten team that's supposed to be good, that struggled mightily. And obviously I'm talking about Penn State. Bowling Green is not good. And so how they, took it to Penn State in the first half, and let's be honest, Penn State, played better in the second half, but it's not like they pulled away and blew them out. It was 34-27. What's your feeling about Penn State now after getting to see them twice?
They cannot crap the bed like they did yesterday in the first half. I mean, that was not pretty. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've talked about Connor Bazelak here on this show before and how he's a legitimately good quarterback, and Bowling Green should be like blown away. They have that kind of quality sitting under center.
Was he from Missouri?
He was the old Missouri quarterback, before Cook came in. Right. He transferred out. Honestly, I'm really kind of shocked. I mean, they did. This is more on the defense than anything, but I mean, Bowling Green's going to run the ball, which is traditionally not Bowling Green, but this coaching staff has really made an effort to run the ball. And heck, they won time of possession by 4 minutes against Penn State in Penn State. That is remarkable. Remarkable. You see a group of 5 team win the time of possession in Happy Valley. Yeah,
that was the big thing to me, was the home losses yesterday. Notre Dame going down in South Bend, Penn State nearly going down at home in Happy Valley, Michigan getting curb stomped in the Big House. That to me was Iowa. Was kind of crazy. And Iowa losing to Iowa State, which was actually a really good football game to watch, and obviously a really big rivalry. So, the Big Ten, I think the Big Ten's really glad that USC, Washington, and some of those teams came in, because some of these teams that were supposed to be good in Michigan and Penn State and maybe some others, Iowa included, may not be that good. And, we'll see where the Big Ten is after about week 4, week 5. We'll start ranking these conferences. But I can already tell you which conference sucks the worst. And that, my friend, is the ACC. Wow. I mean, we watched Florida State get just destroyed 2 weeks in a row when they were supposed to be the best team in the conference. Everybody thinking Jordan Travis wasn't that good, even though they couldn't win without him last year. They can't win this year without him. I think people are underestimating him a little bit. And then we start talking about, NC State and how they're going to be, one of the best teams in the ACC, that they've got, this quarterback from Coastal Carolina, and they got a running back from Duke, and, a receiver from Ohio State. Well, when you start breaking it down, that receiver from Ohio State never did dick when he played in Columbus. It's not like the running back from Duke ran for thousands of yards, and it's not like, this kid didn't go to Coastal for a reason. Do you really think Tennessee is as good as they, looked at times yesterday, or do you think it was? And we're going to talk this for a lot of these games, but let's talk about this one for now. I liked what I saw out of the Tennessee defense. I thought they got after NC State all day long, and I have to give them credit. Their secondary is what I was most concerned about Tennessee going into the season. And, 9 new guys in the secondary, and they look like they all knew what they were doing. I like the linebacker play from Tennessee yesterday. I like their D-line. And, the offense obviously had some explosive plays. How good do you think Tennessee is right now? And was yesterday more a product of that or a product of NC State, just not being very good?
Honestly, I look at that game, and the thing I was most impressed with was 2 factors. Line of scrimmage play. I mean, you look at NC State over Doran's career. Their line of scrimmage play has been their calling card. When they're not as strong at their specialty positions, they've always been kind of like Utah in a way, but not to the extent where they're gonna beat you up on the line of scrimmage. Tennessee won that battle, and I thought won it convincingly. And then the second is Nico's diversification. He's not focusing on one guy. I mean, you're seeing a real diversification in this passing attack, and it's going to give defensive coordinators headaches going into SEC play.
Yeah, I mean, he can run the football and he can throw the football. And I don't think, people think about him more as a downfield passer kind of guy, but he can certainly take off, and he's faster than you think he is. And that's, a big thing. I mean, that play where he ran for the 31-yard touchdown when they were in man coverage, everyone turned their head to the, to the quarterback and started running downfield, and the middle of the field just opened up, and he just basically walked into the end zone. So that to me was very impressive from Nico, recognizing that. He immediately recognized that. He knew they were in man. He saw the linebackers turn and run, and he just immediately ran forward and went for 31 yards for the TD. That was the most impressive play, in my opinion, just because it showed me that this guy's well ahead of where he should be in his, third start?
Yeah. I mean, granted, there were some freshman moments. I mean, some of the mistakes he made. But people got to remember, technically he's a sophomore, but he's only started his 3rd game.
Right.
Mistakes are going to happen. But, 8 receivers catch balls, 250 yards rushing. This is a good diversified offense. You don't want to be focused on, like, Colorado, which every single play, what the hell they're going to do.
Yeah. No, Tennessee, if they could, Dylan Sampson, 20 carries for 132 yards. Nico ran for 65. Deshaun Bishop, the guy we've had on this show from here in Knoxville, showed up and is starting to make an impact. When this team can run their tempo, run the football, and then, throw it on top of that, they're going to be hard to beat. And the offense looks more like it did in 2022 than it did in 2023. And that to me is because they're getting into the groove, they're running that tempo, and they've got the receivers now that they did not have last year. Guys are stepping up. and making plays. And
they need to keep that health though, at receiver. I mean,
yeah.
Brew McCoy, man, if they got to put him out there on a stretcher, you got to do it because they just still do not have the depth at receiver they once did when in 22 when you had Hyatt and Tillman sitting there too as well.
Correct. And we were talking about Tennessee and whether or not they're as good as they looked yesterday, or whether or not NC State is that bad. I want to ask you the same damn question for this Colorado game. I've got to believe it's more. You asked me yesterday. I think it was more of a product of Colorado sucking than it was Nebraska being good. Nebraska wasn't doing anything fancy on offense. No. They weren't, they didn't look to me like Nebraska's like this great team. It just looked to me like Colorado sucks. Their offensive line was horrible. Shedeur Sanders was making horrible decisions. That pass out of the end zone looked to me like he just didn't care, and that he just feels like he can do whatever he wants. And they weren't even getting, Hunter the ball. They refused to try and run it. I'm just not sure what the plan is in Colorado right now, and they should be 0-2.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, honestly, I talked about this going into the year. I think 4-8 again is a real possibility out of Boulder, because they're just not that good of a team. I mean, they've got players, but they're not a team by any stretch of the imagination. It's like almost like they're using this as like a showcase for the draft for Hunter and Sanders, and to a lesser extent Horn. I mean, Horn's a pretty good receiver, and if they've got time, I mean, them on the outside, they've got legit speed. So I look at Colorado, and man, I mean, I think next week they're going to struggle with Colorado State. It's a rivalry game on top of that. I mean, I could easily see them lose that game.
Yeah, I could too. I mean, I'm not sure who they're going to beat is my question. I mean, I don't know.
Baylor?
Maybe. Baylor, showed at least having a pulse yesterday. I'm not sure who Colorado's going to beat. And, on that same front, we talked about this earlier. A lot of people think just because of what a team looked like last year, that is what they are this year. No, sir. College football is different now. Each year you're going to have a completely different thing. People are bringing in guys from the portal. Guys are leaving in the portal. We're recruiting. We're having people decommit. I mean, it's just the teams are completely different. And just acting like Oregon is like a top 5 team. You're not watching them play because they're not looking like the team they were last year. And, I'm not sure it's 100% Dylan Gabriel's fault, but I do think that Bo Nix is better than him. Talk to me about Oregon a little bit here. Obviously, they struggled week 1, and then yesterday barely pulled out a 3-point victory over Boise State, who's not a bad team. But what did you see out of Oregon, and where are they at right now?
I mean, right now, I got to look at defensively. They got some looking in the eye. They got to look themselves in the eyes a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, do not get me wrong. The jaunty kid, the running back out of Boise, is the real deal. He is a legit talent. He had 5-6 touchdowns last week at Georgia Southern.
3 rushing touchdowns last night.
Yeah, I mean, $192. I mean, but Boise's quarterback is a freshman who went 17 of 40.
That's not a good percentage.
That is not a good percentage at all. I mean, I keep looking at like this, the stats that Dylan Gabriel's throwing out. They're throwing a bunch of short stuff. I mean, he was 18 for 21, great completion percentage, but your third down conversion rate is 4 of 12.
That's not good.
I mean, I keep looking at this and I'm like, they lost the turnover battle again. I mean, the schedule gets very hard when you get to the Big Ten, and they're gonna have to get their act together really quick because on paper, they got really good specialty guys. I mean, Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart are legitimate talents. But if your defense can't stop anything, you've suddenly become Colorado really quick. Well,
Yeah.
that's a bit extreme. I won't
let's
go
not,
that far. Yeah.
let's not go there. But they did, give me some question marks. Everybody was putting Oregon at 1 or 1B or 2 in the Big Ten. I'm not sure if that's the case. I've got to be honest with you. Right now, I think USC looks better to me, and just eyeball test, better than Oregon. Not that they played like, yesterday wasn't the greatest team that they were playing, but they did play LSU week 1, and I like USC better than I like Oregon right now, I guess is what I'm saying. And we're talking about Oregon, who's a different team than they were last year. Let's talk also about a little team south of where I'm at here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The score doesn't look that bad when you look at it right now. But going into the fourth quarter, Alabama was getting all they could handle from USF. And they did get it done. They started putting points on the board in the fourth quarter. I think South Florida guys got a little tired, but what's your opinion about the Alabama Crimson Tide right now, and where do you think they are as far as year 1 of Kalen DeBoer?
I knew they were going to have problems implementing that offense. Washington went through the same thing when DeBoer came there. I think second half of the year is going to look much better. And quite frankly, I think one of the biggest problems I had yesterday was get the damn ball to Ryan Williams. Get freaking creative, because he barely was touching the ball until the fourth quarter. And the kid's a game breaker. Technically, he should still be a senior in high school. And look what this kid's doing 2 games into the year. He is your best player. He is probably the best receiver they've had since Devontae Smith.
Yeah, things started looking a whole lot better when they started throwing him the football.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt about that. We're going to see some growing pains. Nick Saban was there for a long time, and the dynasty was real, and we've moved on from that. And now I did like the hire. I still like the hire.
Yeah, I do too.
I think he's a good coach. I think Kalen DeBoer is going to do a good job there. But do I think he's going to win the national championship in year 1? I don't know about that. I just think this is a whole new ball game. Not that Washington and the Pac-12 wasn't good football. Not that he didn't do a great job there. I give him all the credit in the world for what he did at Washington, but this is a whole nother ball game here in Alabama. You get criticized for wins in Tuscaloosa if the fans don't like, if the rednecks don't like the way you won it, and that's a little bit different than what they were dealing with out in Washington. Don't you agree?
Agreed.
So that to me is something that really stuck out was Alabama struggling, and some of these teams that we thought were surefire playoff teams having issues. Is there another game that I did not mention that you want to talk about here before we move along?
Oh, we could go on and on and on. The Iowa State game, but quite frankly, we only got an hour. We don't got 4. So I think we should probably move on to the next one.
Yeah, I just, I'm talking about, we both liked Utah at the beginning of the season. We were both thinking that Utah was going to be a pretty solid football team, especially because they had Cam Rising back. I'm not sure the extent of his injury, but I know he went out of the game yesterday and then was on the sideline in street clothes. Is he going to miss considerable time again? What are we talking about there?
Quite frankly, it's been 7 years he's been in college. Him getting injured is like the sun rising in the east and setting in the west.
No pun.
But you look at like Whittingham and what he's done. I'm not too concerned. I'm not concerned at all in Salt Lake City. That guy has done a phenomenal job, and he will continue to do it. He finds ways of, especially in the second half of the year, you do not want him on your schedule. You just don't.
Yeah, I agree. I just think they're a better football team with him at the helm
Oh, absolutely.
than without. I mean, we saw that
Absolutely.
last year where, it looked not as good, without Cam Rising, in the fold. And I feel like they need to get him back, need to get him healthy. The good news is I believe it was a hand injury. So I don't think he'll be out for considerable time, but that is something to keep your eye on here as we move forward. We're going to talk a little bit more college football here in just a moment, right after this message.
National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1 and futures, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage, for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly.
BetUs.com, America's trusted sports book. And if you are a betting man, I think betting on the Buckeyes right now is a pretty good idea. Will Howard, I watched him in practice. I watched him in the spring game. I thought he looked good, but, there's a lot of talent at that quarterback room in Ohio State. And I was like, is he going to win the job? I mean, obviously he had a leg up considering his experience and some of the other guys' lack of experience. Devin Brown, I think, is meh. I'm not a big fan of him. I'd probably move on from him if I was, Coach Day and Chip Kelly. But, Will Howard yesterday, I mean, don't get me wrong, this guy's got weapons galore. But talk to me about your feelings about him after seeing him guide the Buckeyes for 2 weeks. I mean, if you talk about game one, they were like, oh, he started off slow. He didn't start off slow. He was hitting guys in the hands, and they were dropping it in the first quarter. Well, then they started catching it, and then we saw what he looked like. But I'm liking what I'm seeing so far from him, and thus far, Will Howard has impressed me. What do you think about Will Howard so far, James?
I mean, is he going to be a world beater in the C.J. Stroud, Justin Fields era? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But he doesn't have to be. Honestly, I mean, look at this running game. I mean, this is probably the strongest running game we've seen from Ohio State, probably going back to the Tressel era as far as depth. I mean, Henderson and Judkins are legitimate home run threats every time they touch the ball, and that receiving core is legit. I think if that offensive line can keep gelling together and Howard doesn't turn the ball over, heck, it's success. His job is not to win the game. It's just not to lose it.
No doubt. And I'm really glad that you brought up the running game, because we've got somebody that can talk to us a little bit about the Buckeyes and their running game. And that's Mo Hall, who we've got with us right now. Maurice, how you doing, man?
Oh, man, things are good. How about you?
Hey, I'm doing really good, man. I appreciate you joining us today. It's good to
Absolutely.
see your face. And, man, we were just talking about the Buckeyes. I don't know how much you got to see of the game
Yeah.
yesterday, but they got
blowout.
two pretty good running backs, man. What do you think about these guys?
Hey, man, I mean, I was obviously already impressed with Travion Henderson and the things that he's done in the past, man. Such a great running back, great vision, great feet. And then getting Judkins this year, I was like, what is happening? What are we doing? And, so I was super excited to see both of them, because both of them, the great thing about them, both of them have experience. Right. So it's not like one of them is not played. They both played significant amount of high end football. And I think that's going to do nothing but help us, man, from a depth standpoint, like you said. And then, hopefully we can do something where we can get both of them in the game at one time consistently to really make some plays, because they are playmakers, both of them, like you just said.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And, the one question mark we had going, we knew that Judkins was going to run the ball. Travion Henderson, every time he's been healthy,
Right.
has been a home run hitter. And, this offensive line, I think, has gotten better. But our biggest question mark, was what's this quarterback going to look like in this offense? I mean, he's had success at Kansas State, but this is a whole nother ball game up here.
Definitely.
What do you think about Will Howard, and what do you think about him so far as a Buckeye?
Well, I think he's done a good job. It's also great that he's had some experience in football versus coming straight off of the bench. Obviously, we've seen how Kyle McCord is doing his thing, and I think I attribute that to the play and experience that he got at Ohio State. So I think Will Howard brings something similar. It's still hard for me to gauge because. I mean, we can just be honest. These two teams aren't to the level of the teams we need to play against in order for us to really see what we can really do.
Yeah.
But up to this point, I think he's looked good. He looks good. He's a person who can manage the game, and make great decisions, kind of like you just said, and almost and not hurt us, from that standpoint, and then he can throw as well. He's got an arm on him, and he's got some accuracy. So, I'm looking forward to him continuing to improve and gel within this offense because it is different than, the Kansas State offense that he came from. But I thought he looked good, and they said Craig Krenzel wasn't one of the top running back quarterbacks, and he did exactly what we needed him to do to win every game in that 2002 season. So, I think Will Howard is very similar in that aspect.
Yeah, what's funny is I look back at your time with you and Clarett and Ross were in the backfield, especially in practice, to what we're seeing today with when they brought Judkins in is – it's granted, steel always sharpens steel to make everybody better when you bring better competition in.
For sure.
But you still got to balance that locker room aspect because at the end of the day, you wanted the ball, Ross wanted the ball, Clarett wanted the ball. How to keep everybody happy in that situation? What was that locker room dynamic that Schressel created to make sure that you guys weren't at each other's throats? Because, I mean, yeah, you're teammates, but at the same time, you're competitors at the same breath.
100%. That time was such a interesting time because, as a competitor, like all three of us, Lydell came from Tampa. I'm from Columbus, Reese from Youngstown. So we had already had uber success from a high school standpoint. So you're coming in expecting to be the guy. And then now you're sharing the ball and some people are getting more. And so it's a hard situation, and, you're trying to put everything on the back burner for the team, and I think obviously winning helps that, and so honestly, I couldn't tell you if, in that 2002 season, if we weren't winning, I don't know if I would have been at Ohio State still. Yeah. You know what I'm just honestly, because I had my expectations of what I could do and how I could help. And I didn't, get those opportunities as much as I wanted to, and so it was a hard situation. We even had Jaja Riley, if you remember, he was there. Yep. And Jaja transferred before the national championship game, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But he was fed up as well. And so I understand, and I can't even imagine if the transfer portal back then would have been in place, who knows what would have happened, so, but, I think winning helps it, when you're all have a common goal, you're going towards something and every little bit helps. It helps to be there to support each other. Obviously, Reese was a great player. Lydell was a great player, and we all were trying to support each other. Although, in the locker room, it's like, man, I need some carries.
Yeah.
And that whether that's talking to Coach Spencer at the time or talking to Coach Tressel, it's trying trying to figure it out. Because at the end of the day, you're still, you're 18, 19 years old, so it's not, we're not in the league where, it's a little different dynamic. We're still kids, and we like, hey, I'm the guy. I am the guy, so
No doubt.
But it was but at the end of the day, it was still fun, and we had a great time, kind of supporting each other and going 14-0, man. So that was the big thing for us.
Yeah, and that's, when I think back about that team, and when I think back about that 2014 team, which what I'm rocking today, I got a little jersey from the national championship season on here. Those national championship teams, they just had something special. The guys came together. Everyone was looking at the goal. What do you think this team needs to do to become one of those teams that's together, that's focused, that wants to win, and that has, that ultimate goal as the prize?
Yeah, I think they've started well, and I think you have to really, as a team, understand the dynamics, because at the end of the day, Ohio State they're gonna push certain guys, and eventually somebody's gonna get pushed where right now it's Jeremiah Smith, right? So he's everywhere,
Yes.
So a person like Ibuka, who has definitely proven that he is the guy as well.
Yeah,
it could be very easy for him to lose focus and say, like, I came back and whatever. But I think if everybody kind of just stays focused on the task at hand, which is to win every single game, and do their job, no matter who gets the attention and whatever, because I think that at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. I mean, we've got the players, we got the coaches. We just need the guys to really lock in and understand, hey, we're all here for this one thing, regardless of who gets the credit or regardless of how it comes about. This is what we're trying to get done. And I think if they can do that, obviously you got to play well. Will Howard, the defense, everybody up to this point has looked good, so we're really looking for, a challenger to really see how great we are. And, but I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to the players and their mindset of actually working as a team and not just talking about it.
Talk a little bit about your recruiting process. I mean, you grew up in Columbus, played at Brookhaven. I mean, was there a lot of pressure to go to Ohio State? Because, I mean, you've had people like Dominic Jones and Alex Daniels go to Minnesota, June Henley go to Kansas, and Jeff Cumberland go to Illinois. I mean, was there that hard pressure since, one, you're from Ohio, but more importantly, you're from Columbus, and that process that you went through choosing Ohio State?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it, so I was born in Miami, Florida. So growing up, I was a Miami and Florida State fan, right? Yeah. So when I, even from the first time I started in high school, which was my sophomore year, I sent a, personal letter, highlight tape to Florida State, Bobby Bowden, saying, hey, I want to come to Florida State. Yeah. That was always my mindset. And then, obviously I knew about Ohio State, and the greats that had come from there, but I honestly didn't know too much about Ohio State until I started getting recruited. Then I started paying attention to them more. Terry Glenn went to my high school. So, I would talk to Terry about it because he would come back, and run track with us, track practice. But I was all about, Miami and Florida State. And then obviously as my junior year came, I went to visit both of those schools. They both offered me a scholarship. And I'm like, oh man, you know what I mean? But when you're 12 minutes away from the shoe, man, it's and you're getting the kind of exposure that I was getting at that time. I ran for 3,000 yards and all these things. And everybody in Columbus is an Ohio State fan. It becomes very, pressurized, where it's like, hey man, like how could you leave the state? Like and and obviously, a big reason why I did choose Ohio State was my parents. My parents, obviously they had been to every little league, high school game. And, we weren't in financially that position where they were going to be able to really fly to Florida to come see us, so I was like, I want them to see me play. Obviously, Ohio State is an amazing program, and had an opportunity to play with this guy over here, Steve Bellisari, my first year coming in. But it was one of those things where I remember going to signing day and my head coach said, "Hey, Maurice, just so you know, we got the national letter of intent from Florida State and Ohio State. So what are we doing?" And I'm like, all right, this is what I'm going to do, but it was literally a last minute decision because I was so torn, man. But obviously it was a good one.
Yeah. No, Steve, thank you so much for joining us, man. We were just talking to Mo a little bit about, what those Buckeyes teams that won the national championships had. And, we watched them yesterday and things are looking good so far. But give us, Steve, your impression of, where this team is and what they need to do in your eyes to get back to, championship caliber, like the team that Mo was on in 2002 that won every game.
Yeah, I think what we saw last night was that, right? I mean, they looked crisp. They were sound in the run game. I think Will Howard ran the RPO as good as I've seen any quarterback do it. His reads were perfect, and then defense was sound. Outside of the targeting penalty, which I would say was questionable, there's not a lot I would say for the defense that they need to fix or change. Across the board, we looked really, really good last night.
Yeah, I agree. And, I love watching my team win almost more than anything. However, watching a certain team lose yesterday was more fun. And, Mo, you scored the touchdown against Michigan to put us in the title game. And about this rivalry. I want to get your thoughts on, what's gone on up there with all the hoopla around the scandal. And then now, Harbaugh leaving and now them looking rough and getting dog raced by Texas yesterday. What was your thoughts about what's gone on against your old rival? And what do you feel about, the scandal itself and the aftermath of it for the guys that are still playing up there?
Yeah, well, first I will give credit to Texas. Texas is a good team, right? Yeah, like they're legit, and I think the Michigan's also a good team, but I think there is a lot going on, with this scandal, and everybody's like, when Sharon realized he was the fall guy, and that's what it looks like, and everybody's trying to, as much as you're trying to like focus and move past that, it's so big right now, and there's such a cloud on the Michigan program as far as the success of what they've done in the past and how that scandal contributed to it. Like, you could take it one of two ways, like, oh, we're going to go prove that we're just as good, or man, were we just as good, and I think that's what we're kind of seeing, a lot of the, they don't have the same players. Obviously, Blake Corum's gone, and, the Harbaugh's gone, he's an amazing coach. You have to give him credit for that. So it's a different scenario, man. And I think they're gonna struggle this year because it's just so big, and I think it's going to be a hard road for them moving forward. So we'll see. But, I definitely, I'm not crying for him.
Oh, come on now. We all know that deep down you're hurting for him. It's just, seeing them get boat race yesterday. But, well, one question I have for you is, you've had a lot of great players and coaches throughout time who have been an influence on you. What influences have you taken from them? Because, you did play football after you left Ohio State, but now you've transitioned being an actor, director, writer. What type of things have you taken from them to help you professionally today?
Well, I think for me, I think the biggest thing that I learned from football that really correlated to acting and the entertainment industry is perseverance, man. I will say, from that 2002 season where I'm like, yo, I'm the best running back on this team, and didn't get the same opportunities, and being able to persevere through that season and still win, I think that helped me in the aspect of, I always tell people, when I moved out here in 2009, I had 89 auditions. So audition is basically like an interview. So I had 89 auditions for TV shows and movies where I got a no. So from 2009 to 2013, I had 89 opportunities to interview and I didn't get any of them. Right. So, if I didn't have the football mindset of understanding that, every football play is designed to be a touchdown, but 90% of the time when we run the plays, somebody doesn't execute like they're supposed to, and it ends up being 2 yards or tackle for loss, or maybe it's a first down. And then eventually, if you keep going, it's going to be there's somebody opens up and it's a touchdown, right? So it's the same kind of thing that I look at from the entertainment industry. You just got to keep doing it. Just got to keep doing it. And eventually you're going to get that opportunity where it's like, oh, snap, I'm on national TV, and it's just, so the persistence aspect of just understanding that you got to keep working hard. You got to keep being great. And eventually you're going to get that opportunity that you want.
Like a lot of collegiate and pro athletes that have gone on into acting. Do you guys have like any kind of like fraternity, or you guys getting together from that aspect at all, or not?
I mean, you definitely see, obviously when there's certain auditions, you're like, oh man, I know all these guys, from football. Especially when I first came here, I was doing a lot of commercials, and it was a lot of sports type of commercials. So it's like, oh, here are all the actors that are former football players, but I try to stay, meet people, and then obviously there's a great camaraderie there because we kind of know what we're going through based on this business and how it correlates to what we did in the football level. So it's a fun environment.
No doubt. And Ohio State's always had a history of great coaches. And right now Ryan Day's 58-8. Still gets criticized, even though I think he's a tremendous coach. And also, I feel like he cares about the players. Now, you guys both, had coaches that influenced you. And I want to get your thoughts on, do you think what's going on right now with Coach Day kind of giving up the play calling? And Steve, I'm going to go with you first. As far as, bringing in Chip Kelly, do you think that's something that can help this team moving forward? And then Mo, I want to get your thoughts after Steve's done about what you think about what Coach Day has done since he got there. But Steve, what do you think about Coach Kelly, and what do you think about what the coaching side of it has looked like so far with him giving up the play calling?
Well, if you look at the team, right, they have had to figure out how to give up their ego and put the best players on the field. I mean, look at the running back room, look at the receiver room, look at the DB room. You got talented guys that could go play anywhere in the country. But you put your ego aside, right, and focus on what's important. That's what Ryan Day did, right? He took his ego and said, okay, well, how do we get better? And he brought in a coach like Chip Kelly. And there's like a handful of guys that I would say it's art, right? When they start calling plays, it's art.
Yeah.
You got Andy Reid, Sarkisian's one of them. Chip Kelly's in there, right? Go look at the game plan we put together last night and what we did. I mean, we had them out leveraged. We established the run game. We did whatever we wanted. I think at halftime we were averaging 12 yards of play. That doesn't happen on accident. Yeah, we got good athletes, but putting them in the right position, and Coach Day recognizing that he can actually do more now because he's given that to Coach Kelly. That's impressive. That's a good sign for a team, right? And what they're going to be able to do.
Yeah. And Mo, just talk to us a little bit about, you are obviously with a championship winning coach. Coach Day has not won the title. I mean, we hear about that every day, but it's not like you can come in and just win the title in your first year, and that's an easy thing to do. What do you think about what he's done so far and the job he's done at Ohio State since coming on board?
Well, I think we've gotten spoiled, right? I think since Coach Tressel, we've been spoiled, because of how great a coach Tressel was, how great of a coach Urban was, that, Coach Day comes in and he has an amazing record and everybody's like, man, it's one of those, because at the end of the day, going to a place like Ohio State, you gotta win. You gotta win the big one. And Steve would know better than me, but the atmosphere, and I love Coach Cooper, but I don't know if it was the same kind of mentality that we had when Coach Tressel came, and Urban kind of taking it to the next level. Obviously, Urban coming from Florida that had already won a national championship, so he knew what that was anyway. So now we have Coach Day, who is I think he's a great coach. I think kind of like Steve said, the opportunity to give up the play calling to a person like Chip Kelly, who we all know is an offensive genius, is a huge step in the right direction. I think for Coach Day, I think he is feeling some pressure, and I felt like he felt like there was something he had to do because, of what, the last couple years. So I think that definitely attributed to him turning that over, but I think it's going to be for the better for sure. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I think it's dead on, man. There's no other way to put it, right? If you look at the cards you're dealt and the team you have to put people in a position to win. Coach Dave's doing that, right? And he's maximizing everything he's getting out of these players and coaches. So the recipe's there. Right now, to your point, Mo, they got to keep that edge to them, right? To win and practice and play at a championship level the whole year, it takes really good focus and dedication, and I think we have that. So, the proof will be when we go out to Oregon and see how we show up that day, right? On the road, prime time, it's going to be a big game.
Yeah. No
Why
doubt.
you come to Ohio State?
Exactly. We got about 3 minutes left, fellas, but I want to get a couple more thoughts from you before we get out of here. Steve, we were talking earlier about Will Howard and, what he's looked like so far. And obviously, yesterday was great. First game looked good. What do you think about what he's done so far after taking over? And, what can he be in this offense?
Well, I think what you're seeing is we've been really efficient, right? That's the one thing that I've liked the most about our offense. We're really good on third down. We're averaging close to 5-6 yards of carry on the run. One of my nitpicks after the first game was how do we get the tight end more involved? We did that yesterday.
Yeah.
So we're starting to see us become this really well-rounded team, and I think the sky's the limit with what Will can do. Timing on throws, everything looks good, right? I mean, we haven't seen a lot of people get too much pressure because we've been able to handle it, but that'll be the true test, right? When we start getting in zero covers and blitzing, and they're going to have to mix this up and see what they can do to cover one-on-one with our wide receivers. And I don't know, I like our odds.
Yeah, I do too. And Mo, what do you think it's going to take for this team to gel together and become, a championship level team? What is it picking up a big, win on the road? Is it just, everybody giving it all for the, giving up the selflessness to become, just a championship team? What do you think they have to do to get to where you guys were at in 2002?
Well, I think it is going to take time, right? So I think as they continue to play, they're going to see things that they can improve on individually. And it's going to come down to everyone saying, oh, I see this thing I can improve on. I'm going to do that work. I'm going to put in that work from week to week. So when we do go to Oregon, which is going to be a hostile environment, which is going to be everything that we want it to be to really see how good we actually are. And it's going to be up to us to really perform to that level. And I think as we continue to do that, obviously, in 2002, we had about 8 out of the 14 games were like this. We're super close that necessarily shouldn't have been, but we had that one thing I think that all the players focused on, which was trying to improve week to week. And those small things, I think, at the end of the game really helped us, and caused a turnover, get an interception or a sack or make a big play. Like all those things played a part, starting from week one. And I think we're on the right path for that. We're showing great. And then we have good depth. Our depth is on point. So I think that's going to, a long season, especially this playoff now where we're talking about a 12-team playoff, like depth is going to come into be a huge factor. And I think that's going to separate us from the other teams when, we take a step back and our second person is just as good.
Yeah.
And so I think that's gonna be it, man.
No, I love that point, Mo, because that's, some of these teams, they're doing all right now, but they have that one guy get down,
Right.
like Colorado last year when Hunter got hurt, and some of these other teams with their quarterback
Florida State
go down.
exactly.
They're over. Yeah, when their quarterback went down at Florida State, it was over. And that's going to be the case for a lot of these teams, but Ohio State's got good depth and has a lot of solid position rooms with multiple guys that can play. So, and that was one of the things with that 2002 team, man. They were deep, and you guys had a lot of guys that could get it done. So,
absolutely.
I appreciate you guys so much for coming on today, Mo. It was great to talk to you and see you again.
Thanks, man.
And I appreciate you jumping on with us, and hopefully we can talk to you again down the road as we're marching to the title.
That's absolutely. Let's do it.
All right,
it's good to see you, Mo. I'm glad to have you have as much gray as me now. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, I know. It's crazy out here, man. We're in LA, so, this is my early morning, so you won't see me outside like this. I got to color this in.
It's better than the alternative, right?
Very fair enough.
All right, guys. Well, anybody, if you missed the show or anything, we're replaying at Roku TV on Streaming Sports Network at 3:00. And once again, this is Man Coverage. We got Mo Hall and Steve Bellisari joining us today. Fellas, thank you so much. And hopefully we can bring you back on some other time and talk a little more ball.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
All right, man.